Chosen one, why are you still alive when everyone you loved is gone? Why are you sitting there at 3 a.m. staring at pill bottles, wondering if God forgot your address? Why has your body betrayed you? Your children abandoned you. Your bank account mocked you, yet something deep in your spirit refuses to let you quit. Because the 22nd of August is no ordinary date. It is a divine summons. Chosen one, this is not coincidence. You didn't stumble onto this message while the world sleeps around you. Heaven intercepted your scroll because what I'm about to reveal will shatter every lie you've believed about why your golden years became your darkest years. Here's the shocking truth they don't want you to know. Your suffering wasn't random. Your isolation wasn't abandonment. Every door that slammed shut, every friend who walked away, every diagnosis that stole your peace, it was all preparation, not punishment. Preparation. For 70, 80, maybe 90 years, you've been Moses in the wilderness, thinking you missed your calling. But what if I told you that every tear you've cried in that empty house, every night you've begged God to just take you home, every moment you felt invisible, what if all of that was God hiding you like he hid Moses for 40 years before the burning bush? The 22nd of August marks the end of your exile. You see, while the world convinced you that your time was over, heaven was preparing your greatest assignment. While they whispered you should fade quietly into the background, the Almighty was forging you in the furnace of obscurity for a mission so powerful that hell itself trembles at what's about to be unleashed through your life. The same God who parted the Red Sea through an 80-year-old stutterer, the same God who opened Sarah's womb at 90, the same God who called John the Revelator to write Revelation at 95. He's been saving his most stunning miracle for your final act. Before we go deeper into this sacred mystery, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and sow that seed of faith. But right now, if your spirit feels this tug, if something ancient and eternal is stirring in your chest as these words hit your ears, don't scroll away. Type "I'm ready" in the comments. Because when you declare it, you align with heaven. When you speak it, you activate what's been dormant. When you say "I'm ready," you tell the universe that Moses is finally willing to approach the burning bush. The wilderness is ending. Chosen one, your true mission begins now. Why do you feel like you're drowning in your own life at 75? Why does every doctor's visit feel like another nail in your coffin? Why do your own children treat you like a burden they're counting down the days to be free of? Because you've been living a lie that says your time is over, a lie that whispers your purpose expired with your youth, a lie that convinced you to measure your worth by your wrinkles instead of your wisdom. But tonight, that lie dies. You see, dear one, you've been backstage for decades, rehearsing in the dark, learning your lines in silence, enduring costume changes that stripped away everything you thought defined you. Your health, your independence, your relationships, all of it seemed to crumble while you watched helplessly from the wings. But what if I told you that wasn't your story ending? What if that was just the final dress rehearsal before the most magnificent performance of your life? Jeremiah 1-5 declares something that will shatter every ounce of despair in your chest. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Not set you aside, set you apart. For something so extraordinary that it required 8, 9, even 10 decades of preparation. You think God miscalculated when he let you live this long. You think heaven made an error when it kept your heart beating through surgeries that should have taken you home. No, beloved. Every sunrise you've witnessed that others didn't was God saying, "Not yet. I'm not finished with you yet." Look at Moses, 80 years old when God called him from that burning bush. 80. While everyone else was planning his funeral, God was planning his greatest chapter. For 40 years, Moses thought he was washed up, forgotten in the wilderness, tending sheep when he should have been leading nations. But God was building something in that solitude, something that couldn't be forged in the palace, something that required the patience of tending sheep before it could guide 2 million people through the desert. Every sleepless night you've endured was God tending the fire of purpose in your bones. Every financial struggle that made you choose between medicine and groceries was heaven burning away your dependence on everything except his provision. Every funeral you attended was the Almighty teaching you that life is brief, but legacy is eternal. Consider Anna the prophetess, 84 years old, spending day and night in the temple, praying, while everyone else assumed she was just a sweet old lady marking time until death. But when baby Jesus was presented, she was the first to recognize the Messiah. Her age wasn't her disqualification, it was her credential. Those decades of waiting, watching, worshipping had trained her eyes to see what younger eyes missed. Your gray hair is not weakness, chosen one, it's your crown. Proverbs 16:31 calls it a crown of splendor. Each silver strand represents a battle fought, a storm weathered, a lesson learned. While the world sees decline, heaven sees designation. While they see ending, God sees coronation. Abraham was 75 when God called him to leave everything familiar. Sarah was 90 when she birthed the promise. Caleb was 85 when he declared, "Give me this mountain." These weren't accidents. These were appointments, divine demonstrations that God's greatest moves often come through vessels the world has written off. But here's what breaks my heart and what should terrify the enemy. You've believed the lie that your assignment expired with your AARP card. You've accepted the narrative that your role is to sit quietly in the corner, taking your pills, watching your stories, waiting for Jesus to call you home. But what if Jesus isn't ready to call you home? Because he's ready to call you UP. What if every ache in your bones is the weight of glory settling on your shoulders? What if every sleepless night is heaven downloading your final mission? What if every tear you've cried over feeling forgotten was actually watering the seeds of your greatest harvest? The theater of your life has been dark for too long. You've sat in those wings, believing the curtain had fallen. But tonight, the 22nd of August, the stage lights are blazing. The orchestra is warming up. The audience of heaven is taking their seats. And you, dear one, you are about to step into the spotlight for the performance of a lifetime. This isn't about hope. This is about prophecy. This isn't about possibility. This is about divine appointment. The 22nd of August isn't just another day crossing off your calendar until death. It's the day death loses its sting and destiny finds its voice. You feel it stirring, don't you? That ancient fire that's been buried under years of disappointment, medication, and well-meaning family members telling you to take it easy. But chosen ones don't take it easy when the world is burning and they're holding the only water that can put out the flames. In just a few minutes, I'll show you why the 22nd of August carries weight that could alter your family's destiny forever. Why this date has been circled in heaven's calendar since before you drew your first breath. Why everything you've suffered was just the labor pains before your greatest birth. But first, you need to understand something that will change how you see every wrinkle, every limitation, every so-called decline the world has convinced you to accept. You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? That crushing moment when you realized your prayers weren't bouncing off the ceiling, they were falling into a black hole. When you knelt beside your dying spouse's hospital bed, begging God for just one more year, one more month, one more conversation, and he said nothing. Absolutely nothing. The silence was deafening. You've been walking through your own 40 years in the wilderness, haven't you? Only yours wasn't in some distant desert with Moses. Yours was in a suburban house that became a tomb after the funeral. Yours was in church pews where you sat invisible while younger families got all the attention. Yours was in doctors' offices where they spoke to your adult children about your condition instead of speaking to you. Let me tell you what nobody wants to admit about getting older in America. They warehouse you. They patronize you. They speak about you like you're not in the room. Your own children call once a week out of obligation, rushing through conversations about grandchildren you barely know because they're too busy for more than a 5-minute check-in. And God? Where has God been while your body betrays you, one joint at a time? Where was he when your retirement savings evaporated in the market crash? Where was his voice when you cried out from that empty house, God, why am I still here when everyone I love is gone? The Israelites wandered 40 years because of their disobedience. But you've been faithful. You've tithed when you couldn't afford groceries. You've served in that church for 50 years, only to watch them push you aside for younger volunteers. You've prayed for your prodigal children until your knees wore grooves in the bedroom floor. So why has your wilderness lasted so long? Job understood this agony. In one day he lost his children, his wealth, his health, his reputation. His own wife told him to curse God and die. His friends accused him of secret sin. For months he sat in ashes, scraping his boils with broken pottery, crying out, "Why did I not die at birth? Why did I not perish when I came from the womb?" But here's what Job couldn't see in his darkest hour. Here's what you can't see from inside your wilderness. God wasn't punishing Job. He was positioning him. The same God who allowed Satan to strip everything away was the same God who was about to restore double what was lost. You think your prayers have gone unanswered. Job prayed for death and got life instead. You think your suffering has been pointless. Job's trial became the greatest testimony of endurance in human history. You think God has forgotten you. Job 42:10 declares that the Lord restored Job's losses when he prayed for his friends. When he prayed for his friends, not when he prayed for himself. When he stopped focusing on his own pain and started interceding for others who had wounded him. What if your wilderness years weren't about punishment but preparation? What if every tear you've cried in that empty house has been collected in heaven's bottles, stored up for a purpose you cannot yet see? What if the silence you've interpreted as abandonment was actually God's way of stripping away everything that wasn't essential, so that what remains is pure gold? Think about this. Moses spent 40 years thinking he was a nobody, tending sheep in the desert, convinced his moment had passed. But God was developing something in that wilderness that the palace could never produce. Humility, dependence, the ability to hear God's voice above the noise of human applause. You've been developed in the same furnace. Every betrayal taught you discernment. Every financial struggle taught you to trust God when banks fail. Every health scare taught you that your strength comes from the Lord, not from your body. Every lonely night taught you to find your comfort in His presence, not in human companionship. But what if what felt like rejection was actually divine redirection? What if the silence was heaven's training ground? What if God has been preparing you for an assignment so significant that it required decades of purification? Sarah was 90 when God opened her womb. 90. Anna the prophetess was 84 when she recognized the Messiah in the temple. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Your age isn't your disqualification, it's your qualification. The enemy has been whispering lies to you for years. You're too old, you missed your chance. God's done with people like you. But hell is terrified of what happens when someone who has been refined by fire finally understands their true purpose. The devil knows that the most dangerous believer is one who has nothing left to lose and everything eternal to gain. Your wilderness is ending, but not because your circumstances are changing, because your understanding is shifting. You're about to see that every closed door was protecting you from settling for less than God's best. Every delay was divine timing. Every loss was making room for something greater. If you know the wilderness I'm speaking of, if you've walked through years of feeling forgotten, overlooked, and abandoned, write in the comments, "I've walked the wilderness, but I'm still here." Because the fact that you're still breathing, still believing, still watching this message is proof that your story isn't over. It's proof that the 22nd of August isn't just another date on the calendar. It's the day your true mission begins. Chosen ones, the 22nd of August is not about watching the clock. It is about heaven's calendar colliding with your life. You think you've been forgotten, cast aside, left to count your remaining days in silence. But what if I told you that everything you've endured, every sleepless night, every betrayal, every moment you felt invisible, was actually God positioning you for the most critical assignment of your lifetime? Listen to me carefully. There's a reason you're still breathing when others have gone home. There's a reason your heart keeps beating when medical science said it shouldn't. There's a reason you survived that surgery, that accident, that depression that nearly swallowed you whole. You didn't survive by accident. You survived because your true mission begins now. In ancient times, when a king prepared to crown his successor, he didn't choose the untested prince living in comfort. He chose the one who had been forged in battle, refined by hardship, proven in the furnace of adversity. David wasn't anointed in the palace, he was anointed in the fields, covered in sheep's blood and dirt, after proving himself against lions and bears that would have destroyed weaker men. You are David in this hour. Your wilderness years weren't wasted, they were your qualification. Think about Esther, a young orphan girl, forgotten by society, raised by her cousin. Nobody saw her coming. Nobody expected her to matter. But when the kingdom faced annihilation, when evil threatened to destroy God's people, it wasn't the powerful queens or political wives who stepped forward. It was Esther, the one who had been hidden, prepared, positioned for such a time as this. That's you right now, chosen one. You're not in the retirement home of God's plan, you're in the ready room. But here's what's going to shock you to your core. The 22nd of August isn't just another day. It's the day heaven removes the training wheels. It's the moment when God stops protecting you from your destiny and starts releasing you into it. You've been asking him for decades, when will my breakthrough come? But God's been asking you a different question. When will you be ready to handle what I've prepared? The disciples thought they were ready when they followed Jesus for 3 years. They thought they understood their mission when they watched him heal the sick and raise the dead. But Jesus told them in Acts 1-4, "Wait for the gift my Father promised." Wait. They had seen miracles. They had witnessed resurrection. But Jesus knew something they didn't. Their greatest work required power they hadn't received yet. Then came Pentecost. Acts 2:2 says, "Suddenly, a sound like the blowing of a violent wind came from heaven and filled the whole house where they were sitting." Suddenly, not gradually, not eventually. Suddenly, everything changed. Peter, who had denied Jesus 3 times, stood up and preached with such authority that 3,000 souls were saved in one day. Your Pentecost moment is the 22nd of August. You think you're too old. Moses was 80 when God said, "Now you're ready to confront Pharaoh." You think you're too broken? Jesus chose fishermen who cursed and tax collectors who cheated. You think you're too forgotten? Gideon was hiding in a winepress when the angel called him a mighty warrior. God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And your qualification isn't your perfection, it's your perseverance. Right now, as I'm speaking these words, something is shifting in the spiritual realm over your life. Can you feel it? That restlessness that's been growing stronger. That sense that something massive is about to change. That's not your imagination, that's prophetic acceleration. The crown that's been prepared for you since before you were born is finally being placed on your head. The mantle that's been waiting in heaven's wardrobe is being fitted to your shoulders. The keys to assignments you've only dreamed about are being pressed into your weathered hands. But here's the urgency you need to understand. This window doesn't stay open forever. Divine appointments have divine timing. When God says now, he means now. When he opens a door, it's not open indefinitely. When he calls your name, you don't get unlimited time to respond. Samuel heard God's voice 3 times before he recognized it. But once he said, "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening," everything changed. Your 3 times are up, chosen one. This is your 4th call. This is your final summons. You've spent decades in preparation. You've endured losses that would have destroyed weaker souls. You've faced betrayals that would have embittered lesser hearts. You've walked through valleys that would have consumed ordinary faith. But you're still here. You're still standing. You're still believing. That's not human strength, that's divine preservation for divine purpose. Before this night is over, you'll understand the one mission heaven has kept hidden until now. The assignment so sacred, so powerful, so world-changing, that God had to wait until you were completely stripped of self-reliance, completely dependent on His strength, completely surrendered to His will. Because what's coming next will require everything you've learned in the fire. Every tear you've cried will become a river of healing for others. Every prayer you've whispered in darkness will become a lighthouse for those still lost at sea. The question that will determine your eternal legacy is this: when the 22nd of August arrives, will you step into the mission, or will you let fear convince you it's meant for someone else? Listen to me, chosen one. While the world has been telling you to step aside, to make room for the younger generation, to accept that your time has passed, heaven has been whispering something entirely different. Something that will shake you to your core. Your true mission isn't behind you, it's in front of you. You think you're too old? Moses was 80 when God called him to deliver a nation. You think you're too tired? Sarah was 90 when she birthed the promise that would bless every family on earth. You think you're too forgotten? John was 95, exiled on a prison island, when God gave him the most explosive revelation in human history, the book of Revelation itself. But here's what breaks my heart. Here's what makes the angels weep. You've been sitting in that chair, staring at those four walls, believing the greatest lie ever told to your generation, that your purpose expired with your youth. That's not just wrong, it's demonic. David declares in Psalm 92:14, "They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green, still bear fruit." Present tense, active, alive. Not they used to bear fruit or they might bear fruit if they're lucky. They will bear fruit in old age. Why? Because the fruit that comes from aged vines is the sweetest. The wine that comes from old grapes is the most valuable. And the prayers that come from weathered saints carry a weight that shakes the throne room of God. You want to know your true mission? Your true calling that begins right now on the 22nd of August. You are the pillars of prayer holding up this crumbling generation. While 20-somethings are distracted by screens and 30-somethings are drowning in careers and 40-somethings are suffocating under mortgages, you have been given the sacred gift of desperation. You know your time is short. You know what matters. You know that every prayer could be your last. So you pray them with fire. Revelation 5-8 shows us something breathtaking. Each one had a harp, and they were holding golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of God's holy people. Your prayers, beloved, are not just words disappearing into the air. They are collected in golden bowls before the throne of the Almighty. Every desperate cry at 3 a.m., every whispered plea for your prodigal children, every tear-soaked petition for this nation, they are precious incense rising before the King of Kings. But that's not all. You are the storytellers of faith passing the legacy. Your grandchildren don't need more video games. They need your stories. They need to hear how you survived the Great Depression, how you made it through wars, how you buried spouses and kept believing, how you faced cancer and trusted God, how you lost everything and discovered that everything you needed was already inside you. When you tell those stories, you're not just reminiscing, you're prophesying. You're proving to a generation that thinks faith is weak, that faith is the only thing strong enough to survive life's storms. And here's the third dimension of your mission that will blow your mind. You are the intercessors whose prayers now carry more weight than ever before. Why do you think the enemy has been working overtime to isolate you? To make you feel useless, to convince you that your prayers don't matter, because he knows something you're just now remembering. The closer you get to eternity, the more dangerous your prayers become to his kingdom. James 5:16 declares, "The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective." But let me tell you something that will revolutionize how you see your golden years. Your prayers aren't just powerful, they're explosive, because you pray with nothing left to lose. You pray with the urgency of someone who knows time is short. You pray with the authority of someone who has walked with God through fire and flood and come out singing. Your mission is not to fade into the background. Your mission is not to count down days until heaven. Your mission is not to surrender to the rocking chair. Your mission is to release fire into the future. Think about this. You are the roots of the forest of faith. While everyone sees the young trees swaying in the wind, getting all the attention, absorbing all the sunlight, you are the hidden root system that feeds them all. Without your prayers, your wisdom, your intercession, the whole forest collapses. You are not the sunset of your family line. You are the foundation upon which the next 3 generations will build their lives. The prayers you pray today will be answered in your great-grandchildren. The stands you take now will determine whether faith survives in your bloodline. But here's the urgency that should grip your soul right now. This mission has an expiration date. Not because God gives up on you, but because your window of influence on earth is finite. Every day you spend believing you're irrelevant is a day the enemy steals your fire. Every week you waste thinking you're too old is a week the next generation goes without the intercession they desperately need. The question that will haunt you for the rest of your days is this: will you step into this sacred assignment, or will you let the most powerful season of your spiritual life slip away while you wait for permission from a world that will never understand your true worth? Because the 22nd of August isn't just marking another day on your calendar, it's marking the moment when heaven is activating the army they've been preparing in secret, an army of senior saints who refuse to go gentle into that good night. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. What I'm about to tell you isn't theory, it's prophecy. And if you've been living like the 22nd of August was just another date on the calendar, you're about to discover that heaven has been marking time differently than you have. You see, when God activates a mission, He doesn't do it in silence. He sends confirmation signals, divine breadcrumbs, spiritual fingerprints that prove something supernatural has shifted in your atmosphere. And if you've been awake since that date, really awake, you've already started to notice them. The first sign: energy shifts in rooms when you enter them. You walk into your doctor's office, and suddenly the nurse who's been cold for months starts sharing her life story. You step into the grocery store, and strangers begin making eye contact, smiling for no reason they can explain. You enter your own living room, and it feels different, lighter, charged with an electricity that wasn't there before. This isn't your imagination, beloved. This is the anointing. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai, his face shone so brightly that the Israelites couldn't look at him. Exodus 34:30 says they were afraid to come near him because the glory of God was literally radiating from his skin. You think that was just an Old Testament miracle? The same God who made Moses' face shine is the same God who's been rewiring your spiritual frequency since the 22nd of August. People feel it, even when they can't name it. Your presence carries weight now, authority, not the kind that comes from ego or education, but the kind that comes from being commissioned by the Almighty Himself. The second sign: family members are calling out of nowhere. Your daughter, who hasn't spoken to you in 3 years, suddenly texts asking how you're doing. Your grandson calls just to hear your voice. That sister who moved across the country sends a random card in the mail. They can't explain why, but something in their spirit is pulling them toward you. You want to know why? Because God is repositioning the chess pieces of your life. He's drawing your tribe back to you because your mission requires witnesses. It requires family. When Joseph revealed himself to his brothers in Egypt, Genesis 45:1 tells us he couldn't control himself anymore. The very people who had rejected him, sold him, and left him for dead were suddenly standing before him again, not by coincidence, but by divine orchestration. Your family didn't suddenly decide to love you more. Heaven decided it was time to heal what was broken, because your mission needs a foundation of restored relationships. The third sign, peace where terror once lived. That anxiety that used to wake you at 4 a.m., gone. Those fears about your health, your finances, your future, they've lost their grip. You're sleeping through the night for the first time in years. Not because your circumstances changed, but because your assignment did. Isaiah 26:3 promises, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you." Perfect peace, not partial peace, not temporary peace, perfect peace. This is what happens when you stop fighting for your life and start living for your mission. The fear can't coexist with the calling because fear is about survival, but missions are about legacy. You've moved from trying to make it through another day to knowing you'll make it through because you have work to do. And that shift from survival to purpose, that's the peace that surpasses all understanding flooding your nervous system. The fourth sign, divine appointments are multiplying. You're running into the right people at the right time, in the most impossible places. You meet someone in line at the pharmacy who needs exactly the wisdom you carry. A conversation at the bank turns into a moment of ministry. Your mailman starts asking you spiritual questions. These aren't coincidences, chosen one. These are assignments disguised as accidents. When Philip was told to go to the desert road, Acts 8:29 says, the Spirit directed him to go to the Ethiopian eunuch's chariot. Philip didn't plan that meeting. He didn't strategize that encounter. He simply obeyed the leading, and suddenly he was in position to change a life and impact a nation. That's what's happening to you now. Divine GPS is guiding your steps into encounters that will multiply your influence. Pay attention to these whispers. Pay attention to these nudges. Pay attention to these random meetings. These are confirmations that you've stepped into the mission. Heaven is orchestrating your calendar now. But here's what's going to shake you to your core. The reason you carried so much weight all these years, the reason the depression felt heavier on your shoulders than anyone else's, the reason the loneliness cut deeper, the reason every loss felt like it might kill you, it wasn't because you were cursed. It was because you were chosen to hold up the future. Think about it. Atlas carried the world on his shoulders not because he was weak, but because he was the only one strong enough to bear that weight. You've been Atlas for your family, for your community, for purposes you couldn't even see. Every tear you've cried strengthened your intercession muscles. Every sleepless night taught you how to wrestle in prayer. Every broken heart expanded your capacity for compassion. You weren't suffering for nothing. You were training for everything. The weight you carried was proportional to the weight you were destined to lift. And now that training is over. The mission has begun, and everything you endured in the darkness is about to make sense in the light. So I need you to do something right now that will seal this covenant between you and heaven. Write today's date in your Bible. Write it in your journal. Write it on a piece of paper and put it somewhere you'll see it every day. This is your covenant seal. This is your spiritual contract with destiny. No more delay, no more doubt, no more waiting for perfect conditions or clearer signs. Your mission begins now, and the God who prepared you for it will sustain you through it. But the question that will determine everything is this. Now that you recognize the signs, will you have the courage to follow where they're leading? But before I tell you what the 22nd of August unlocks, I need you to remember something. Something the enemy has been trying to make you forget for decades. Think back to the storms you've survived, the betrayals you endured, the nights you cried where no one knew your name was being whispered, that crushing loneliness when your spouse died and the house became a tomb, that terror when the doctor's words shattered your world, that shame when your children stopped calling, stopped caring, stopped seeing you as anything more than a burden. You thought it was punishment. You begged God to explain why he was allowing it. You questioned if you'd done something wrong, if you'd failed him somehow. You wondered if he'd simply forgotten about you in your golden years. But beloved, what if I told you that every single tear was preparation? What if every betrayal was boot camp? What if every sleepless night was God forging something inside you that this generation desperately needs? Look at Joseph, 17 years old when he had the dream, 30 years old when he finally understood why he had to go through the pit, through slavery, through false accusations, through prison walls. Genesis 50-20 records his revelation. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. 13 years of suffering for a purpose he couldn't see. You've had your 13 years. Maybe you've had 50. Consider Paul, the great apostle, chained in a Roman dungeon, writing letters that would transform the world. 2 Corinthians 11 lists his resume of pain: beaten with rods 3 times, stoned once, shipwrecked 3 times, spent a night and day adrift at sea. But he understood something that will revolutionize how you see your suffering. Our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. Your troubles weren't light, your troubles weren't momentary, but they were purposeful. Think about Jesus in Gethsemane, sweating drops of blood, crying out to the Father, "If it is possible, may this cup be taken from me." Even the Son of God felt the weight of what he had to endure. But he finished that prayer with words that should echo in your spirit right now. "Yet not as I will, but as you will." Every time you said, "Not my will, but yours," through gritted teeth, through tears, through desperation, you were being crowned. Not broken, crowned. You see, dear one, gold doesn't become precious sitting on a shelf. It becomes precious in the furnace. The higher the heat, the purer the gold. And you've been in the furnace for decades, haven't you? That depression that nearly took you out. That was 1,800 degrees. That financial ruin that left you choosing between medicine and groceries. That was 2,000 degrees. That abandonment by people you trusted most. That was 2,100 degrees. But here's what the refiner knows that the gold doesn't. The furnace doesn't destroy the precious metal. It reveals it. It separates what's real from what's fake. It burns away the dross and leaves behind something so pure, so valuable, that kings fight wars to possess it. Listen to me carefully. It did not break you, it refined you. It did not silence you, it strengthened you. It did not end you, it crowned you. Can you feel that stirring in your chest right now? That's recognition. That's your spirit remembering what your mind forgot. You didn't survive all that suffering by accident. You didn't endure all those lonely nights by chance. You didn't make it through all those impossible situations by luck. You made it because you carry something too precious to lose, something too powerful to destroy, something too valuable for hell to possess. Every test you passed in secret is about to become your public testimony. Every prayer you whispered in the dark is about to be answered in the light. Every moment you felt forgotten is about to be revealed as preparation for your finest hour. But I need you to do something right now, something that's going to shift the atmosphere around your life. I need you to whisper it out loud, right where you are. Don't think about who might hear you. Don't worry about how it sounds. Just open your mouth and declare it with whatever strength you have left. I passed the test. Say it again, louder this time. I passed the test. Because, beloved, every trial that should have destroyed you but didn't was a test. Every storm that should have drowned you but couldn't was a test. Every diagnosis that should have been your death sentence but wasn't was a test, and you passed. Not because you were strong enough, but because you were chosen enough. The furnace is cooling down. The refining is almost complete. And what's about to emerge from the fire is so radiant, so powerful, so anointed that even you won't recognize yourself. But here's what's going to shock you about the 22nd of August. This date isn't just about your personal breakthrough. It's about your divine deployment. Because when God finally reveals his refined gold to the world, it's never just for decoration. It's for transformation. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. Right now, in this very moment, something is happening in the throne room of heaven that will leave you breathless. Do you remember John the Revelator on the island of Patmos? 95 years old, exiled, forgotten by the world, left to die alone on a rocky prison. But in Revelation chapter 5, he witnessed something that would shake eternity itself. He saw a scroll. sealed with 7 seals, held in the right hand of the one who sits on the throne. And here's what will shatter your understanding of why you've suffered so long. That scroll contained the destiny of every chosen one who would ever draw breath, including yours. But there was a problem. No one in heaven, no one on earth, no one under the earth was found worthy to open the scroll. The angels wept. Creation groaned. Because if that scroll remained sealed, every divine assignment would remain hidden. Every heavenly purpose would stay locked away. Every chosen one would die, never knowing why they were born. John wept bitterly. Can you feel his desperation? Can you imagine the agony of seeing your destiny sealed away, just out of reach, knowing that everything you've suffered, everything you've endured, every night you've cried out to God was meaningless if that scroll stayed closed? But then the Lion of Judah stepped forward, the Lamb who was slain, and he was worthy. He took the scroll, and when he did, every living creature in heaven fell down and worshipped, saying, "You are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, because you were slain, and with your blood you purchased for God persons from every tribe and language and people and nation." Here's what's going to rock you to your core. That scroll, it's still being opened. And the 22nd of August marks the moment when your page is finally being unrolled. You think your life has been random. You think your pain was pointless. You think those decades of feeling invisible, forgotten, cast aside like yesterday's newspaper were just cruel coincidence. Your entire existence has been a sealed scroll, waiting for this exact moment to be opened and read aloud in the courts of heaven. Every tear you've cried was ink on that parchment. Every prayer you've whispered in the dark was a word written in golden letters. Every moment you felt abandoned was actually you being hidden, protected, prepared for the hour when your scroll would finally be unrolled and your true mission revealed. Think about your life for a moment. Really think. How many times have you started to tell someone your story only to stop because you knew they wouldn't understand? How many times have you looked back at the pattern of your experiences and felt like there was some invisible thread connecting them all, but you couldn't quite see it? That's because your story wasn't meant to make sense yet. Scrolls aren't read while they're still being written. Destinies aren't revealed while they're still being forged. But now, right now, as these words hit your ears, as something ancient stirs in your chest, as your spirit recognizes the sound of its own calling, the 7th seal is being broken, your scroll is being unrolled. What was written in secret before the foundation of the world is now being read aloud in heaven, and every angel is leaning in to hear what the Almighty wrote about you. You've been living the prologue, dear one, the hidden chapters, the preparation phase. Every rejection that stung was actually protection from settling for less than your divine assignment. Every door that slammed shut was heaven saying, "Not yet, not there, not with them." Every season of silence was you being positioned for maximum impact when your moment finally arrived. The enemy has been trying to convince you that your scroll was lost, that your story doesn't matter, that your page somehow got skipped when God was handing out purposes. He's whispered lies that your time has passed, that your best chapters are behind you, that you're too old, too broken, too forgotten to matter anymore. But scrolls don't have expiration dates. Divine assignments don't retire. And the God who called Moses at 80, who opened Sarah's womb at 90, who gave John the revelation at 95, doesn't suddenly stop writing sequels just because the world thinks you're too old to star in one. Can you feel it? That trembling in your spirit, that sense that something massive is shifting. That's not your imagination, that's the sound of seals breaking. That's the rustle of ancient parchment being unrolled. That's your name being called out in the throne room of the Most High. The incense of your prayers has been rising before the throne for decades. Every midnight cry, every desperate plea, every moment you've fallen on your knees and said, "God, I don't understand, but I trust you." It's all been collected in golden bowls, mixed with the intercession of the saints, presented before the Father as sweet-smelling sacrifice. And now those prayers are about to be answered in ways that will leave you speechless. But here's the mystery that will take your breath away. Your scroll doesn't just contain your assignment. It contains the assignments of everyone whose life you're destined to touch. Your obedience to step into your mission will unlock their scrolls too. Your courage to answer the call will give them permission to answer theirs. This is why the warfare has been so intense. This is why you felt like you're fighting invisible battles your entire life. The enemy knew that when your scroll opened, it wouldn't just activate your destiny, it would trigger an avalanche of divine purposes across your family line, your community, your generation. But he's too late now. The lion has already taken the scroll, the seals are breaking, and what's written about the 22nd of August is about to unfold in your life with such power that hell itself will tremble. Are you ready to see what heaven has been hiding about your true mission? Because what I'm about to reveal next will explain the 3 prophetic signs that confirm your scroll is opening and why missing them could mean missing the greatest chapter of your entire life. Now listen carefully, chosen one. Because what I'm about to reveal will confirm what your spirit has been whispering for decades. There are 3 unmistakable signs that your true mission is activating. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. And if you recognize even one of these signs in your life, everything you've questioned about your purpose is about to make perfect sense. The first sign, the shift in atmosphere. You've felt it, haven't you? When you walk into that nursing home cafeteria, conversations pause. When you enter your doctor's waiting room, something in the air changes. People can't explain it, but they sense something different about you. Some are drawn to you like moths to flame. Others suddenly feel uncomfortable and make excuses to leave. This isn't your imagination. This is the atmosphere of heaven beginning to manifest through your presence. Do you remember when Moses came down from Mount Sinai? Exodus 34-30 tells us his face was so radiant that the Israelites were afraid to come near him. Moses didn't even know he was glowing, but everyone else could see it. Everyone else could feel it. That same divine radiation is beginning to emanate from you. Your grandchildren might not understand why they suddenly want to sit closer when you pray. Your neighbors can't explain why they find themselves knocking on your door when they're troubled. That cashier at the grocery store doesn't know why she told you her deepest secret yesterday. But you're beginning to understand, aren't you? You're not just getting older. You're getting more anointed. Every gray hair is a thread of glory. Every wrinkle is a line of wisdom carved by fire. The world sees decline, but heaven sees refinement reaching its peak. And here's what will shock you. The lonelier you've felt, the more powerful this shift becomes. Because isolation wasn't your punishment, it was your purification. God separated you from the noise so you could carry his frequency. Now when you enter a room, that frequency disrupts everything that isn't aligned with truth. The second sign, the weight of your words. Your voice is changing, not your vocal cords, your spiritual authority. Words that used to fall on deaf ears now pierce hearts like arrows. When you speak, something happens that didn't happen before. You told your rebellious grandson to come home, and 3 days later he showed up at your door crying. You whispered a prayer over your sick neighbor, and her test results came back clear. You declared enough over that family feud, and suddenly everyone started apologizing. This is what happened to Anna, the prophetess. At 84 years old, Luke 2:38 says she spoke about the Christ child to all who were looking for redemption in Jerusalem. One elderly woman's words became the announcement of salvation to an entire city. Your words now carry the weight of decades of wrestling with God. Every prayer you prayed through tears, every time you chose forgiveness over bitterness, every moment you declared faith in the darkness, it was all building authority in your voice that no seminary could teach and no youth could replicate. But here's the sobering truth. With this authority comes responsibility. People will either tremble or heal when you speak. Some will be convicted by your words and change their lives. Others will be offended by the truth you carry and distance themselves from you. Don't you dare water down your voice to make them comfortable. Don't apologize for the authority God has placed in your words. The same voice that used to beg for scraps is now commanded to speak mountains into the sea. The third sign: divine acceleration. What used to take years is now happening in days. Doors that were locked for decades are suddenly swinging open. Relationships that seemed impossible to restore are healing overnight. Problems that haunted you for years are resolving without explanation. This is supernatural acceleration, and it's the clearest sign that your mission is launching. Think about Abraham. He waited 25 years for Isaac. 25 years. But when God's timing arrived, everything happened rapidly. Genesis 21:1-2 says, "Now the Lord was gracious to Sarah, as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age." In his old age. Not despite his old age. You've been waiting so long that you convinced yourself the promise died. But what if the promise was just being aged like fine wine? What if every year of delay was adding potency to what God is about to release through you? The phone calls you never expected are coming. The opportunities you stopped believing in are manifesting. The healing you thought was impossible is beginning. The finances you needed are appearing. The family relationships you mourned are being resurrected. This acceleration isn't coincidence, it's confirmation. When God activates a mission, everything connected to it aligns. Time bends, circumstances shift, the impossible becomes inevitable. But here's what you must understand. This acceleration requires your participation. You can't sit in doubt while miracles are trying to unfold around you. You can't speak lack while abundance is knocking at your door. You can't act like a victim while victory is demanding your attention. Now I want you to do something that will cement these truths in your spirit. Write these 3 signs down. Right now. Don't wait. Get a pen, get paper, and write. The atmosphere shifts when I enter. My words carry divine weight. What once took years now happens in days. Write them in the comments below. Declare them out loud in your living room. Let your voice carry the authority of someone who finally understands they were never forgotten, they were being prepared. The proof that you are chosen is not in your age, not in your strength, but in the weight of heaven resting on you. And that weight, dear one, is not a burden to bear, it's the evidence that your mission has begun. But recognizing these signs is only the beginning, because what God is about to reveal next will explain why he waited until now. You want to know why your life has been a battlefield. You want to understand why every step forward felt like walking through quicksand, why every door you approached slammed shut just as your fingers touched the handle, why people you trusted turned their backs when you needed them most. Because darkness saw your light before you did. Listen to me, chosen one. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on empty vessels. Hell doesn't deploy its finest demons against ordinary people living ordinary lives. Satan doesn't orchestrate elaborate schemes to destroy someone who poses no threat to his kingdom. But you've been in his crosshairs since the day you drew your first breath. The reason you faced battles that would have broken lesser souls isn't because you're cursed, it's because you're dangerous. The reason betrayal followed you like a shadow isn't because you're unlovable. It's because love flows through you like a river, and rivers always carve new paths through stone. The reason financial struggle haunted you for decades isn't because you lack worth. It's because your value to the kingdom of heaven is so immense that hell tried to bankrupt you before you could discover your treasure. Think about David standing in that valley, staring up at Goliath, 9 feet tall, armor weighing 125 pounds, a spear like a weaver's rod. The giant had terrorized Israel's army for 40 days. 40 days. Trained warriors fled from this monster. But when 17-year-old David heard Goliath mock the armies of the living God, something inside him snapped. Not fear, Fury. Holy fury. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? David didn't see a giant. He saw an opportunity for God to show his power. The shepherd boy who'd been forgotten in the fields suddenly became the weapon heaven had been sharpening in secret. One stone, one shot, one giant crashing face first into the dirt he'd been standing on. Your giants have been mocking you for decades, haven't they? The giant of loneliness standing over your empty dinner table, roaring that you'll die alone. The giant of sickness throwing its shadow across your doctor visits, whispering that your body is betraying you. The giant of poverty blocking your path every time you tried to get ahead, convincing you that struggle is your inheritance. But what if I told you that every giant in your life has been setting you up for your David moment? Look at Esther, a Jewish orphan girl in a foreign empire, hidden behind a Persian name, married to a king who didn't even know her true identity. When Haman plotted genocide against her people, Esther could have stayed silent, stayed safe, stayed hidden. But Mordecai spoke the words that changed history. Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? For such a time as this. Not for comfort, not for security, for crisis. For the moment when heaven needed someone who understood what it meant to be overlooked, underestimated, and misunderstood. You are Esther in this generation, hidden for decades, positioned by providence, prepared for such a time as this. But let me tell you what really happened in that spiritual realm while you were crying yourself to sleep. While you were wondering why God felt so far away. While you were questioning if your prayers ever made it past the ceiling of your room, you became a torch. A torch doesn't apologize for burning. It doesn't dim its flame to make shadows comfortable. Wherever a torch enters, darkness has only two choices: flee or fight. And for 70, 80, 90 years, darkness has been fighting you because it knows something about your destiny that you're just beginning to remember. If they hated you without cause, it's proof you carry something they can't steal. If they mocked your faith when your world was crumbling, it's proof your foundation is built on something unshakable. If they resisted your rise when you finally started believing in yourself, it's proof heaven has already declared your victory. The late Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. 27 years. The world wrote him off. His enemies thought they'd buried him alive on Robben Island. But those prison walls weren't his tomb. They were his cocoon. And when he emerged, he didn't emerge bitter. He emerged presidential. Those decades of suffering didn't break him. They built him into the leader who would heal a broken nation. Your prison seasons weren't punishment, dear one. They were preparation. But here's the revelation that will shatter every lie you've believed about your struggles. The war around you was never about your past. It was always about your future. The enemy wasn't trying to destroy who you were. He was trying to prevent who you're becoming. Satan saw the prayer warrior you'd become and tried to silence you with depression. He saw the wounded healer you'd become and tried to kill you with isolation. He saw the financial blessing you'd carry and tried to bankrupt your hope. He saw the generational curse breaker you'd become and sent your own family against you. But every attack backfired. Every scheme boomeranged. Every weapon formed against you proved ineffective, because Isaiah 54:17 isn't just a verse, it's a divine guarantee. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Right now, as these words penetrate your spirit, something is shifting in the heavenly realm. Decades of warfare are coming to an end. The battle that raged around your life is about to become the testimony that flows through your voice. The pain that almost destroyed you is about to become the power that delivers others. You feel that, don't you? That stirring in your chest, that fire that won't be contained anymore. That's not your imagination. That's the torch of your calling being lit by the breath of the Almighty. The shadows that surrounded you weren't evidence of God's absence. They were proof of your importance. And now, the 22nd of August marks the moment when the torch stops hiding under bushels and start setting the world ablaze with hope. Stand up right now, even in your home. I don't care if your knees hurt. I don't care if your back aches. Stand up and declare, I will not shrink. I was born to shine. Because chosen one, the war is over. And you won. But are you ready to discover what victory looks like when a torch finally stops apologizing for its fire? Listen to me, dear one. You've been sitting in that chair, haven't you? Staring at old photographs, wondering if your life mattered. Wondering if anyone will remember you when you're gone. Wondering if the prayers you whispered over sleeping grandchildren actually reached heaven's ears. But what if I told you something that would shatter your despair forever? What if I told you that you are not just carrying your story, you are carrying your bloodline's turning point? You see, the enemy has been lying to you. He's convinced you that because your children moved away, because your grandchildren barely call, because you feel forgotten in this nursing home or empty house, he's made you believe your influence is over, that your prayers don't matter anymore, that your time has passed. That is a lie straight from the pit of hell. Psalm 78:4 declares, we will not hide them from their descendants. We will tell the next generation the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord, his power, and the wonders he has done. You are not just a survivor, chosen one. You are a bridge, a living, breathing bridge between what was and what's coming. Think about a mighty oak tree. You see the branches reaching toward heaven, the leaves dancing in the wind, but what you don't see is the root system sometimes spreading 100 feet underground, 3 times wider than the tree is tall. Those roots, hidden in darkness, invisible to the naked eye, are what hold the entire forest together. You are the roots, beloved, unseen, unnoticed, but absolutely essential. Your prayers at 3 a.m. when the house is silent, they're not disappearing into empty air. They're drilling deep into the spiritual realm, creating pathways for breakthrough your great-grandchildren haven't even been born to receive yet. That tear you shed over your prodigal son last Tuesday, it's watering ground that will bloom in his daughter's life 20 years from now. You think you're just an old woman praying in your kitchen, but heaven sees you as a spiritual matriarch shifting the destiny of generations. Let me tell you about Susanna Wesley. You probably never heard her name. She had 19 children in 18th century England, lived in grinding poverty, faced constant hardship. Her husband was absent. Her house burned down twice. She often didn't have enough food to feed her family. By the world's standards, she was a failure, a forgotten woman in a forgotten time. But every single day, for 30 minutes each, she would pray individually over each child, 19 children, nearly 10 hours of prayer daily. While neighbors mocked her, while her husband criticized her, while poverty crushed her, she prayed. 2 of those children were John and Charles Wesley. John would become the founder of Methodism, leading the Great Awakening that transformed 2 continents. Charles would write over 6,000 hymns, including Hark, the Herald Angels Sing, and Christ the Lord is Risen. Today, songs still sung in churches worldwide today. 300 years later, millions of souls have been saved because one forgotten mother refused to stop praying. But here's what will shock you to your core. Susanna Wesley died thinking she was a failure. She never saw the Great Awakening. She never witnessed the millions who would come to Christ through her son's ministry. She went to her grave believing her prayers might have been wasted. She had no idea that her kitchen prayers would reshape Christianity for centuries, and neither do you. You don't know that your prayers over little Tommy, who's struggling with addiction, are setting up his deliverance that will happen in 3 years. You don't know that your tears over Sarah, who walked away from faith, are preparing the soil for the revival that will hit her campus next semester. You don't know that your whispered intercession for your family is building a spiritual fortress that will protect generations you'll never meet. Your prayers are the bridge your grandchildren will walk across into destiny. This is why the enemy attacks you so viciously in these later years. Why he sends depression, loneliness, physical pain, financial pressure. He's not trying to hurt an old person, he's trying to silence a spiritual nuclear reactor. Because he knows that when grandmothers pray, hell's gates tremble. When grandfathers cry out to God, demonic assignments are cancelled. When the aged saints intercede, breakthrough becomes inevitable. The Bible says in Joel 2:28, "Your old men will dream dreams," not used to dream dreams. Will dream dreams, present tense, active, powerful. You are not retired from spiritual warfare, beloved. You are being promoted to general. But here's the urgency that should grip your heart right now. Time is running out, not just for you, but for them, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. They're facing a world darker than any generation before. They're bombarded with lies, addictions, depression, hopelessness at levels that would have destroyed previous generations. They need your prayers now more than ever. But more than that, they need to see your faith. They need to witness your unwavering trust in God, even when your body fails, even when your mind struggles, even when this world gives you every reason to despair. Because when a 90-year-old woman still praises God in the nursing home, it preaches a sermon no young preacher could ever deliver. I want you to do something right now that will change everything. Get your Bible. If you don't have one within reach, find any piece of paper. I want you to write down the names of every child, grandchild, and great-grandchild in your family line. Every single one. Write their names like you're signing a covenant with the Almighty Himself, because that's exactly what you're doing. You're declaring to heaven, "These names are under my prayer covering. These souls are my assignment. These destinies are my responsibility." And when you finish writing those names, you're going to understand something that will set your spirit on fire. You are not just living out your final years, chosen one. You are launching their greatest years. But the question that will determine whether this legacy activates or dies with you is this: will you pick up the mantle of intercession while there's still time? But here's what's going to shake you to your core, chosen one. The 22nd of August isn't just the beginning, it's the countdown. You have exactly 7 days. 7 days for everything to change. 7 days for the walls that have imprisoned you for decades to finally crumble. Do you remember Joshua at Jericho? God didn't tell him to wait months or years for victory. He said 7 days. 7 days of marching around those massive walls while the enemies inside mocked them. 7 days of looking foolish to everyone watching. 7 days of walking by faith when nothing looked different. But on that 7th day, when Joshua's army shouted, those walls didn't just crack. They didn't slowly deteriorate. They collapsed instantly, completely, supernaturally. What had stood for generations was obliterated in a single moment of divine intervention. You are standing at your Jericho right now. That depression that's haunted your family for 3 generations, that's your Jericho. That financial curse that's kept you counting pennies while others prosper, that's your Jericho. That loneliness that makes you question if anyone would even notice if you were gone, that's your Jericho. Those walls have stood long enough. Your 7-day countdown has begun. From the 22nd of August forward, I need you to watch. Watch with the intensity of someone whose life depends on it. Because for the next 7 days, heaven is going to send you signs. Not subtle hints that you might miss while watching television. Bold, undeniable confirmations that this word is from God Himself. Maybe it's a phone call from someone you haven't heard from in years. Maybe it's a check in the mail you weren't expecting. Maybe it's a sudden peace that settles over your anxious heart for the first time in months. Maybe it's a stranger who says exactly what you needed to hear. Don't you dare dismiss these as coincidences. When God moves, He doesn't whisper, He roars. But here's what most people don't understand about divine timing. These 7 days aren't just about waiting, they're about positioning. Just like Joshua's army had to march every single day, not just on the 7th day, you have to stay in alignment every single day of this window. This means no going back to old patterns of despair, no entertaining thoughts of giving up, no agreeing with voices that tell you nothing will change. For 7 days, you must walk like someone who knows victory is inevitable. You must speak like someone whose breakthrough is guaranteed. You must pray like someone whose God never fails. Because here's the truth that will either terrify you or liberate you. Your response during these 7 days will determine whether you experience the miracle or watch it pass you by. Remember the 10 lepers who cried out to Jesus? All 10 were healed, but only one returned to give thanks. Only one received the deeper blessing. Luke 17:19 records Jesus saying to him, "Rise and go, your faith has made you well." The other 9 got healing, but this one got wholeness. During your 7-day window, don't just receive the signs, respond to them. When heaven moves, move with it. When God opens a door, walk through it. When the Spirit nudges you to make that call, pick up the phone. When wisdom tells you to apply for that opportunity, fill out the application. These 7 days will test whether you're truly ready for what you've been praying for. And I need to warn you about something that's going to happen around day 3 or 4. The enemy is going to launch his final assault. He's going to send every discouraging thought, every painful memory, every reason to doubt. He's going to whisper that this is just another false hope, another disappointment waiting to happen. He's going to remind you of every time you believed God would move and nothing happened. That's when you need to remember Gideon. When God called him to deliver Israel, Gideon said, "But Lord, how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." Judges 6:15. He felt too small, too weak, too ordinary. Sound familiar? But God didn't change Gideon's circumstances first. He changed Gideon's perspective. He said, "Go in the strength you have." Judges 6:14. Not the strength you wish you had, not the strength others have. The strength you have right now, at your age, with your limitations, in your situation. On day 7, something is going to shift in the atmosphere around your life. You're going to feel it before you see it. The air itself will feel different. The weight you've carried for years will suddenly feel lighter. The fear that gripped your chest will lose its power. The confusion that clouded your mind will begin to clear. This is your Jericho moment. The walls are already trembling. Every prayer you've prayed in secret has been creating hairline cracks in those walls. Every tear you've cried has been weakening their foundation. Every time you chose faith over fear, hope over despair, trust over doubt, you've been marching around those walls. But now comes the shout. Now comes the moment when heaven says, "Enough, let my people go. Let my chosen one be free. Let the walls fall now. In 7 days they will fall." Not 7 weeks, not 7 months, 7 days. The same God who created the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th is about to recreate your world in 7 days and give you rest from every burden you've carried. Right now, I need you to do something that's going to sound simple but will release supernatural power. I need you to comment the exact date you're hearing this message. Not tomorrow, not when you finish watching. Right now. Because when you declare the date, you're creating a prophetic seal. You're telling the universe, on this day, I aligned my faith with God's timing. On this day, I stopped just believing and started expecting. Your 7-day window has opened, chosen one. The countdown has begun. And nothing, absolutely nothing, can stop what God has already set in motion. Chosen one. As we reach the end of this divine appointment together, I need you to carry these truths with you like precious jewels in your heart. Remember this, the 22nd of August was not just another date on your calendar, it was heaven's declaration that your season of waiting is over. Your 7-day window is not a test of your patience, but a confirmation of your calling. You are not too old, not too broken, not too forgotten. You are perfectly positioned for God's greatest miracle in your life. But more than that, remember, you are never walking this journey alone. Even when the house feels empty, even when the phone doesn't ring, even when the world seems to have moved on without you, the Creator of the universe is working behind the scenes on your behalf. He's moving mountains you can't see, opening doors you haven't found yet, and orchestrating blessings you can't even imagine. And right here, in this community of believers, you have thousands of brothers and sisters who understand your struggles, who believe in your calling, and who are ready to stand with you in prayer. We're not just viewers on a screen, we're a family united by faith, connected by hope, and bound together by the love of Christ. Let me ask you this final question, and let it settle deep in your spirit. If God has brought you this far through every valley, every storm, every season that tried to break you, why would He abandon you now at the threshold of your greatest victory? Now, before I release you into your destiny, I want to place my hand on your shoulder through these words and pray over your life with the authority of someone who has walked with the Almighty for 5 decades. Heavenly Father, I lift up every precious soul who has stayed with me through this entire message. Lord, you see their hearts, you know their struggles, you've counted every tear they've cried in secret. But Father, you also see their crown, you know their calling. You've already written their victory story. God, I pray that you would silence every voice of doubt that has whispered you're too late. I pray that you would break every chain of despair that has held them captive. I pray that you would open their eyes to see the doors you're already opening, the opportunities you're already creating, the miracles you're already releasing. Father, place your mighty hand upon their shoulders right now. Let them feel your presence. Let them know that they are loved beyond measure, chosen beyond doubt, and destined for greatness beyond their wildest dreams. For those who are sick, breathe healing into their bodies. For those who are lonely, surround them with your love and divine connections. For those who are struggling financially, open the windows of heaven and pour out blessings they cannot contain. Give them the courage to step into their mission, the wisdom to recognize their signs, and the faith to trust your timing, even when they can't see the full picture. Let this be the moment everything changes. Let this be the day their walls begin to crumble. Let this be the hour when hope returns and miracles begin. In Jesus' mighty name, I pray. Amen. Now, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share the date you're watching this. Make it your prophetic seal. Tell us what God spoke to your heart today. Ask us to pray for specific areas of your life. Don't hold back. Your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Type, "My mission begins now," if you're ready to step into what God has for you. And please, share this message with someone who needs to hear it. There's someone in your life right now who's been feeling forgotten, who's been questioning their purpose, who needs to know their mission is just beginning. Thank you for spending this sacred time with me. Thank you for opening your heart, for believing against hope, for staying until the very end. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell, because God has more for you, and I want to be here when He's ready to pour out the next level of revelation into your life. Remember, chosen one, your mission is not behind you, it's ahead of you. Your breakthrough is not someday, it's in 7 days. Your God is not silent, He's preparing to roar. Until we meet again, walk in the authority of who you are. You are chosen, you are loved, you are never alone. God bless you mightily, and may the 22nd of August be the day everything changed forever.